Welcome to Curiosity Unleashed and the Wisdom Seekers with one of my favorite guests, Stephanie Kunkel. Good morning, good afternoon from me, and good morning to you.
Good morning.
How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, good. We're talking about knowing thyself. So I suppose, just even greeting each other, we always go, I'm okay. Yeah. But that extra check-in and making sure we don't just pretend, I suppose, is also part of the know thyself. Yeah.
You know how I feel about that, but it's something I feel very strongly about because I think we don't do that often enough. And things get lost in translation and expectation and, not wanting to burden people with our problems. And so there's a need for that genuine check-in.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Without the drama in a way, right? So it's easy to fall into the trap of, I'm okay. And then going, I'm okay until you close the door and you're like, I'm not really okay.
Yeah.
And I think this is a part of what both of us do. You, through perspective shifters, now renamed, or the community side. I'm going to ask you in a minute to kind of let us dive into that a little bit more. Rebel Dream Lab. We kind of look at ways for us to connect even more to ourselves through each other, because I think there's a big part of the human psyche, not psyche, maybe the human need for not just belonging, but to be part of, because we are part of a bigger picture. In our individual rebellious expressions,
Yeah.
it's good for us to be able to feel safe. I don't like that word, but that is what, enough to express ourselves in authentically, in sincerity. And that's a little bit, what we're going to be talking about. You're going to be our wisdom workshop host next week, and we're going to explore a bit more about understanding or mastering that understanding of ourselves through one of your favorite tools, human design. Tell me more.
Yeah, I mean, really, like I've always been on this self-exploration journey. Always felt like I was a little bit different, couldn't quite fit in. Now I'm recognizing that, if we go with standard, Westernization labels, right? Like I'm most likely on the spectrum, but I definitely have already been diagnosed with ADHD and depression and, all of these different labels that we can put to all of the minutia that happens in our personalities. And for me, I never truly felt really seen as a child because, there was all of these projections put on me. And we can talk about that a little bit from the human design perspective. But, I was supposed to be the angel and the good girl. And so anytime I ever messed up, there was, all of these extra, I don't want to say penalties, but all of these extra conversations about like how I messed up and why I messed up. And then, we had people who were, and when I say people, I mean other family members who were expected to mess up. And that I didn't understand because they were good people too. And so I went on this like really long journey of just trying to find myself. And I'm still on that journey. But for me, it started through behavioral science back when I was in high school, learning that we didn't understand how the brain works, in all of the different ways that it works. And that was fascinating to me. Like, how is there this part of us as humans that we don't understand still? What is that?
Yeah.
So I really started kind of exploring what psychology was, how the brain worked. And then when I was really struggling in 2011, I went to cognitive behavioral therapy for years. And I worked through that. And it wasn't until 2021 that I found human design and immediately was like, oh my gosh, I feel seen. I feel understood. I feel like somebody knows exactly what's in my heart and I don't have to be a certain way for that to be the way that, for somebody else to see that. And even though it wasn't necessarily that anybody else was seeing it, it was in my chart and it was there. And I was like, oh, like I remember just the tears flowing because I just felt so appreciated and seen and worthy, and, everything that I'd always wanted to feel that I tried to seek outside of myself was right there in my design. And I was like, oh, so I've been on this track for 4 years now, like digging in and trying to better understand how it all works, because it's an incredibly complex system.
Yeah. And I think part of that, and I'm checking in with you on this, whether you think so too, but a part of that being seen is also being seen by yourself, kind of.
Yes. Yeah, because we tend, even just without all of the nuance of human design, right? I think it's something that a lot of that we tend to be conditioned to someone else. And this is scientifically, it's relevant, right? You made the comment earlier, like, I don't like to use the word safe, but realistically, that's exactly what we're looking for, is safety and security. Our brain is hardwired to protect us, and our brain is hardwired to keep us alive. And for centuries, if you didn't fit in with the group and you were kicked out of the group, you didn't survive. So all of our ancestors got really good at fitting in and really good at listening to other people and knowing what people wanted. And as young children, we're trained very early on to, that safety and security comes, and it literally gets ripped away from us when our parents are yelling at us because we looked at somebody wrong.
Yes, there's also an aspect of, back then when our brains had to do this, we were seen as individuals more because we were part of a tribe, and we weren't in this disconnected society that didn't really see us for who we are. So for me, there's quite a bit of a miscommunication now, where before that aspect only had to kick in severe cases where, okay, but there was a place for the medicine woman or the medicine man or the crazy cat lady or the, the one that, whatever it is, that now people seem to hide because it's like, ooh, others aren't going to see, understand this part of me.
Yeah, and I think that's the critical part of us as adults, is what I'll say. I was reflecting on the term coming of age story earlier this morning, actually, because a couple of weeks ago, I read a coming of age tale about a woman who was moving out of teenager years and into adulthood by the classic, 18 years old. And I'm reading a tale now of a middle-aged woman who's going through her, and I'm like, this is a coming of age tale. Like, this is what this looks like. But I digress. The idea that we can't be unique and step into our unique place, that a lot of that is lost because of the conformity aspect. And I love, there are lots and lots of books out there, but there was a book that I read a couple of years ago. And if you're like Michelle and I, and you're a little bit of a contrarian or a rebel, right, you're going to appreciate this book and probably just nod your head the whole time. But The End of Average by Todd Rose, who actually studies the concept of average mathematically, has determined that there is no such thing as average. There's no average body type. There's no average IQ. There's no average anything. And so knowing that, though, right, knowing that even mathematically, like, there's not truly, for the human being, any such thing as average, we have to be comfortable to step into those places of medicine woman or contrarian or whatever that looks like, because we have to own who we are as people. And if we don't own, and this is something that I'm actually going through my own personal growth process right now of, is if we don't own it and we don't become visible in that space, other people are never going to see us.
Yeah. Because we don't become more of us either if we withhold certain aspects of ourselves from whoever it is, from ourselves, It's not even about the audience. There was just something that you said now that I wanted to reply to, but now I can't remember.
The end of
That's it.
average.
So average can be replaced with the concept of normal. I was just going to say, insert normal. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and there really is no such thing, right? Like even, and I mean, I hate to squash science here, but even like the idea of normal temperatures, like I don't know if you've ever lived through a really hot summer or really cold winter, but there's no such thing as normal when you're at, for me, living in the super far north, 105 degrees outside, like that's abnormal. But, it's also for a week or two a year, that's what happens. We get these, strange high temperatures. And I think that's part of, and I'm not saying that global warming doesn't exist. I don't want your viewers to think that I'm saying that. I know that exists, right? We can study trends over time and know that things are not going our way.
But it also depends on which sizes of time we're looking at. And I don't think you're crushing any science. The whole point of science is for it to evolve. So we have to be able
to and to ask questions. Exactly. Science is rebellious by nature, right? It's the idea of I'm going to ask questions that nobody else is asking, and then I'm going to look for the answers. And that, I love the aspect of science, and I've always loved science ever since I was a little girl because of that fact of saying, I have a question and nobody seems to have the answer, so let me go find it for myself.
But for myself, and not according to.
Exactly. That's what I was just about to say. And I think that's the piece of like even asking those questions of ourselves, right? Like I have a question about who I am or why I feel this way, or, why I'm sensing things that nobody else seems to sense. What is, the standard question right now is what's wrong with me, right? Instead of that, right? What is different about me? Why am I different? What is it that sets me apart?
Or who am I? Even outside of the comparison, it's like above the Temple of Delphi. It was know thyself. That's it. It's not about. We can only be ourselves if we know ourselves. And I think this is what you are, saying as well. Especially in human design, you have the 4 energy types.
There are 5.
5, yes. Generator, manifestor, manifesting generator, projector, and reflector. Yeah, so 5. And each of those energy types move differently in the world. I think we've spoken about this before, how the world, for example, the education system, my favorite topic, is built around the generator aspect, the corporate world, everything really.
And that's the thing, like, I actually studied, I don't know if you know this or not, I studied early childhood education for a short time. And we talk about the gold standard of early childhood education being the Montessori schools, where play is everything, right? Play is how we learn. And I always found it fascinating that we've known this for a really long time as, psychologists and teachers, and we know how important play is. And yet we still have schools that are built around production and getting people to the production line and punching a clock and, listening and saying the things that they need to say to get through. So, and I have 2 children of my own, and one of them this is just not his thing. Like it's, he cannot be there all day long, every day. And of course, then the question comes, well, is it ADHD? Is it autism? And he's asking himself these same questions. And the reality of it, he's just different. He thinks differently. He needs a different learning style. And it doesn't mean that and that's the thing is it's not just him, right? It's every student in that classroom is different and needs something different.
But this is my point, if we have a garden and one of the plants aren't doing very well, we don't go, oh, what's wrong with the plant? Always. We first check, does it have the right soil? Does it have enough water? Maybe there's another plant that it shouldn't be next to. It's not, you know what I mean? It's such such a difficult thing for me to accept is that we have to have labels for us to accept ourselves,
Yeah.
because the system is just hasn't really changed in the past 200 years, and it didn't work that well to start with, to be honest.
Right. I mean, honestly, you just hit the nail on the head. Like the systems that we have in place right now, they're not working. We've proven that. We've proven that over and over and over and over again. And that's one of the challenges that we have as a society is that we are so, I remember, what was it, 2 years ago, I think you asked me a question of like, what would happen if the systems weren't there? And I was like, what? and we do that because we get comfortable. We feel supported in the systems, even though we're not. And, for all the things that are happening in the world, we're watching our systems crumble. We're watching the things that we know and rely on for so long fade away. And a lot of people are scared right now, and that's understandable. But for me, and I get scared too. So don't think that I'm above that. But for me, I think the thing I always remind myself of is with this comes the need to rebuild, which gives us the power to rebuild something better.
Yeah.
Something that works for everyone, something that will help everyone. And that is exciting. That is invigorating. Like that is something that I am pumped up for.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there's so much potential or possibility that but it is scary. It is uncharted waters, which is not always a bad thing for me, at least, and I think you can also pick that up in. So I'm not going to talk about it that way. I'm going to ask you to tell us a little bit more about human design specifically. You also use it in your coaching. You have two kind of ways to work with you in the Rebel Dream Lab or Perspective Shifters, where it's more of a community. You have calls and classes and courses and things like that. With a lot of other coaches, I know you are like me. It's not there's one right way or one best way to do things. So it's always about the different voices in the room. But then people can also work with you directly. Stephanie Kunkel, I'll pop your email, your website up there, and you work with rebels.
I mean, whether it's people in the corporate space, I love working with rebel entrepreneurs, and that's really where my passion is. That's where the Rebel Dream Lab was born out of. But I, the systems that need to change are far and wide. And whether that's as an individual, you recognize things aren't working for you, or whether you work in a corporate space and you're recognizing that it's not working, or you work in government, or whatever that looks like, that's part of being a rebel, right? As somebody who can look at things from a bigger view and say something's not working and we need to figure out what it is, and be willing to go the extra mile to help people to shift their perspectives and help them move forward in a way that makes sense. So that's who I work with, are the people who are out doing that type of work.
Yeah. And it starts from within. So it starts with that know thyself aspect. And next week you are coming to do a little bit of a workshop for us. Our theme this month is mastery specifically. This season is the art of mastery. How would you, I know you're going to touch on topics like authority, things like that. Run us through a little bit more how, I suppose how we are different, what can we take from that to go, hang on a minute, I'm not just weird, I'm me.
Yeah. I mean, for me, we talked a little bit earlier about never feeling seen. And that was probably the first thing that stood out to me about my own chart was I'm what they call a fifth line, and fifth lines by nature, we are kind of the actors of the play view. Like we show up and we are just who we are. And unfortunately, though, everyone else sees us for who they think we are. And we can sometimes play into that. We can be projected upon and live in that space of playing to what other people want without, and it's purely unconscious. We just sit there with it and just entertain that, and then don't feel seen because and that was, for me, that was the most freeing aspect, I think, of learning who I was through human design, because I was like, wait, hold on. So you're telling me that it doesn't matter what I do, these people are going to see me for the good or the bad, whatever is in their hearts and minds. And they were like, yeah, basically. And I was like, oh, well, then why in the hell am I even trying? Right? Like, why am I trying to make myself this, like, and what's interesting is that it allowed me to release some of the things that I was doing because I wanted to feel seen as a certain person, and actually fall into just being and existing as the person that I am. And it's helped me too to understand how people in my life, need me to respond and need me to give them direction and need me to ask questions and communicate to them. With my daughter, she's almost a teenager, has probably been a teenager for about 5 years now, but almost, she's just hit teenager
in the normal and the averages.
And she used to just talk. Like, she'd tell me about her day, and then she started to kind of come into herself a little bit more, and she wasn't as open. And then all of a sudden I realized that I wasn't asking her the yes, no questions that her authority needed to be able to open up. I was just, hey, how was your day at school? And she'd be like, it was fine. It was okay. Oh, so then I had to start asking, well, how was your, did you enjoy science today? Did you enjoy this today? And every once in a while I'd hit on one and she'd be like, oh yeah, we did this. And suddenly everything came to life and she was talking about her day again. And I was like, oh, she really does need yes, no questions. And so for me, human design is what you make it, right? It's based on the Kabbalah. It's based on quantum physics. It's based on astrology. And it's based on the I Ching. And so, like, it's based on all of these things, but fundamentally I need your birth date, right? So it's astrologically based. You take as much weight as you want to it. But I've found in my life that there is a real aspect of this, when we talk about, just the patterns of the moon and how the moon affects us. And then we look at quantum physics and we learn that, a photon here, when observed, changes the way that a photon in another part of the universe reacts. There's got to be something to the way that the planets and everything work around us. Yeah. So I've just found so much value in it, and being able to just, I had a project that I worked on the other day, and I'm going to be releasing that soon for everybody else. But I basically went through and just looked at the different pieces of my chart and came up with affirmations for it. And once again, I do this every so often, but once again, it was like, I just felt so seen. It was like, okay, I'm on the right track. I'm doing the things that I'm designed to do. And I'm really stepping into my authenticity, to the point, Michelle, and you'll appreciate this, where my after 40 years old lesson, which I'll be 40 in February, right? My after 40 years old lesson is to be able to give of myself without forgetting myself. And that's been like a big thing for me, right? Yeah. And so I'm like, oh, it's all kind of coming together right now.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And it's wonderful. And I love the system so much because it helps me guide my clients to make decisions that work for them. I can then meet them where they are, and I don't have to apply systems that don't work for them.
Yeah. And it's that seeing them for who they are is such a big thing, because there's no 5-step plan that works for everybody. There really isn't. I'm sorry. The 5 a.m. club does not work for everybody. It works for mostly a masculine driven kind of energy, which isn't everybody's energy, but we judge ourselves against the fact that, that's just too difficult. It doesn't do it for me.
Yeah. And there's so much nuance in the world. It's not just, we look at ourselves and we try to explore who we are as people, but there's a lot that make up who we are, not just internally, but also in the things that go on in our life. I tell everyone we come to this table with our own lens of perspective, and that lens is birthed out of our experiences. And really, that's one of the things that I love about human design, because it doesn't forget that aspect. Human design can tell you who you are at your core, but it recognizes that there's conditioning that happens in our world. There are things that we go through in our life that teach us these lessons, that teach us how to be who we are. And, I think one of the reasons, this might sound a little funny, but I've always gotten along with people who were much older than me. When we would go to family gatherings or we would go to parties, I was hanging out with the adults while all of the people that were my age were playing, and the adults were like, go play. Like, why are you, we brought you here so you could get away from us for a while. But I always was curious and wanted to know about people who were older than me. And I'm starting to realize that the beauty of that is because they've already found themselves. They've already figured out who they are. And I wanted to know who I was, and I wanted to know how to be like that and how to just be and not have to worry about what parents were thinking and authority figures. And that was just being in the realm of human design, learning about human design. I've got two really great women who started a group in my state, Monique and Amanda, and they have brought together other people who are looking at human design, and we are able to share space and ask questions and learn from each other. And it is a different, I use the term personality tests, right? Because we've all done the Myers-Briggs test, and, there's many, many, many different ones out there. And this is the first one that I found that is so incredibly validating as a human, just who I am as a human, rather than this is how I communicate with others, or and then all of that's there too. But it's just so much more vivid and robust, I think, with human design, of telling me exactly, hey, you're you, and that's okay.
Yeah. And there's so many different elements to it. It's not just personality assessments and things like that has been my field of study. And a lot of it is really limited in how we look at the person. We can't just say there's two sides. Which side are you on? That's why I don't like the Myers-Briggs at all. But we need a scale. We need to have a look at the bigger picture, and not just 5 or so many elements that isn't as robust. I mean, it's just.
And that's exactly why, that's the piece that I love about human design. Depending on who you study under, but I will tell you that anybody that I've studied under, they will tell you that you have all of the chart, right? There's 64 gates. I don't remember how many circuits, but however many you can make with 64 connected by 2. And then, we've got all of these centers. And the thing is that even though some of these things are undefined, we still have all of those, because the energies around us affect us, right? So the energies of people that we come in contact with can light us up. The energies of the transits of the planets can light us up in different ways. And it's one of the reasons why, if you have a wide network like you and I do, right, we can see trends with our loved ones and our friends of like, everybody's kind of going through the same thing at the same time. That's because all of us have our solar plexus is lit up right now because this channel is in place. Oh, that makes sense, right? For a while recently, we had the channel of struggle that was lit up, and it seemed like everybody was struggling at that moment. And part of that, it connects us in that, that human consciousness aspect, and we all can connect, and we all can get to know each other better and can relate to each other, and it keeps us connected. But ultimately, we all have all of that chart. It's nuanced, and it's defined based on who we are at our core, but we can experience the range of human experiences, and that's what I love about it.
Yeah, I love that. And it's such an important part, again, coming back to the know thyself, but then being able to communicate it with each other and say, wow, I had this kind of day, and someone else can say, hang on, I also had this kind of day. And then we can go and look at the pattern or the thing, and look at the bigger picture and go, oh, hang on, everything's actually fine, you know.
Right.
Yeah, we might be going through a thing, but we're doing it together, individually, which I love.
Exactly.
So I don't know if you want to show us a quick chart.
Yeah, I know we both love the teachings of Carl Jung, so I pulled his chart for you to take a look at. So Carl, okay, there it is. Carl is a 2-4 emotional generator. So one of the ways that we know he's an emotional generator is because this solar plexus here, this is his solar plexus, is lit up, and it's what we call defined. So the cool thing about this is that Carl Jung actually has several waves, or well, one wave coming off of here, and that's an emotional wave. People who are emotionally defined, and that's their inner authority, right? That's the way that they have a guidance system, a compass. They'll have a wave. So sometimes that can be a pretty quick wave that feels like instantaneous. And then sometimes it's a little bit longer, maybe takes a while, a couple weeks or a month or, whatnot. And every emotional person has to find their own wave. So if you're an emotional manifestor, an emotional generator, even though I can show you kind of what these waves might look like, the reality of it is you have to figure out how long your wave is and how to ask yourself that question. But so his emotional solar plexus is defined, and that's why we know his authority was emotional. His sacral is defined, which is this little square right here. That tells us that he is a generator. And so that's the way that we know that he's a generator. And all of these have to do with, as you can see, there are 64 gates. And that's part of that I Ching basis, right? And so each one of these gates that's defined depends on where in the astrological chart that they were at when he was born. What I find interesting about this is that 2-4s generally, they're called the hermit and opportunist, and I'll tell you why. So hermits, 2s, right? They need time to take a break, right? They can be around people and they love being around people and they're interested in people, but they need to take a step back and regain their energy every so often. And that's a really important piece of 2s, especially in today's society when we're taught go, 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 go. The 2s need a break. They need a good 15 to 20 minutes, if not longer, to come back and come away from people and just be in their own space and their own auras. And the fourth line talks about networking, right? So we talk about opportunists. It's not that, they're out and they're able to grab every opportunity that comes to them, but that their network will bring them opportunities. So, as we look at the things that happened in Carl Jung's life, we can also see that some of those things that he got opportunities for came from his network. And I love that about that as well. And I think, one of the best ways that I can bring this up is my son is a 2-4, and he actually was able to get a job recently at one of our local establishments here. And he waited and waited and waited and waited. And me and, his mentors were like, you really should think about putting your application in. You really should think about doing your resume. Like if you want a summer job, you don't have to get one, but if you want one, we live in a tourist town. Like the summer jobs are already taken by the time that we're like June and July. And he waited and waited and waited. And then when he finally applied, he ended up getting the first job that he applied for, in part because somebody knew him through his father and knew the type of person that he was. And it just happened that it was the first place that he applied. And I'm like, this is the genius of the fourth line, right? And the way that this works is no matter what they're going through, they can find somebody to help them no matter what's going on. And so it's a really lovely thing to see that happen with the fourth line for sure.
Yeah. And that's very interesting. About I seem to have a lot of generators for twos around these days, so it's very interesting.
Yeah, we do try. Here's the thing: we gravitate towards types. I've known that I've watched this with other human design practitioners too. Like I'm a 5/1, and I think because I speak so vulnerably, a lot of other 5/1s see themselves in me, and so like I would say probably 75 to 80% of my clients are 5/1s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's been really interesting. Every time I get connected with somebody and I pull their chart, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're a 5/1. And I would love to, this is me, and the one line as a researcher, if anybody's watching and isn't familiar. So my one line is very interested to see what the conditioning looks like of the other 25 to 20% of my network who's like, in my space to work with me, because I think there's probably some 5/1 conditioning going on too.
Yeah, which is
So
very interesting. And it's
yeah, definitely.
Stephanie, thank you so much. I'm so
Yeah.
looking forward to your workshop next week. We're going to be pulling some charts and kind of having a look at these things. I think there's a lot of depth in the human design, and it's always lovely hearing you talk about it, because I can see how it lights you up, and
Yeah.
it's amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. If anybody plans on coming, let me know if you need me to pull your chart. Otherwise, I will see you there, and bring your charts.
Yep. Yeah. It is. I have popped it onto Eventbrite for people that aren't members of the Wisdom Seekers. I will pop a link in at the bottom of the video. I think it's going in out in a few places.
Yeah.
But you can find the Wisdom Seekers Society on Eventbrite, and there will be a space there for you to join as a non-member. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. I always love this, Michelle. Thank